of June. Jason McDonald's with us, managing member of SADUJA. How do you pronounce that, Jason?
Yep, so that's SADUJA. It actually
SADUJA.
Yep. It stands for the first two letters of the three founder members' name. So say Dudley and Jason.
I got you.
Yeah.
He's a managing member of the Great Mississippi Tea Company, and Jordan Cain. Jordan is COO of FerrCann Transport Group and also board member of MICA. Gentlemen, thank you for showing up here. I know it's not been an easy year for you with all of this stuff happening. Jordan, first of all, just to give people an idea of what we're talking about here, you guys invested in the medical marijuana, sizable amount of money. One of the things you had to have, it was important that this was in place, is a testing facility. And I'll let you take it from there because things went awry and how some people are going to recover from this, I don't know. But kind of paint the picture of where we are. Jason, anytime you want to join in, please do.
All right.
Right, yeah. So as part of the medical cannabis program, all product has to be tested by a licensed third-party testing facility. So there are a few in the state. At one point, Rapid and Steep Hill were the two prominent players. Now there's a few others that have come online. So what's kind of brought us here, right, is that as part of that testing, it came out that specifically with Rapid that there are just SOPs and testing procedures that weren't being followed, which ultimately resulted in a statewide recall. So that resulted in a lot of product, about 2/3 of the product in the state being put into an administrative hold pending retesting.
So at that particular time when this was early on, Rapid had basically 2/3 of the business in the state?
Correct, for testing.
Yeah, for testing. All right, take it, Jason, continue on that thought.
Yeah, and so when the state put the administrative hold in back in December, they basically stopped all of the sale of any of the COAs, so that certificate of authenticity, and so basically couldn't be sold. And actually, it was supposed to start out as a 3-week hold, and the last of the products just got tested left the facilities about 2 weeks ago. So it went from a 3-week hold to like a 6-month hold, and so that was part of the lawsuit that we claimed, was that that the inability to sell product over 6 months detrimentally damaged our businesses.
All right, let me, just so I can put this in perspective, because this is all new to most of our folks across the state. If it was a candy store, you had to have your candy inspected. 2/3 of your selection, your inventory, was not there because it didn't pass inspection, basically?
Well, and that's the dispensary side. But so, like, say, a cultivator like us that was using Rapid exclusively, 100% of our product.
Are both of you cultivators or just one?
Well, I'm a cultivator.
Okay, and you're a vendor. You've got an outlet.
I'm a transporter. We have a common investor that also has a dispensary.
Okay, I'm not sure how in the world they can survive without what they had, no product there.
Yeah, well, and that was the basis of the lawsuit that we're talking about, and I mean, that's it's rife for issues, because if you've got an administrative fine and you can look at that administrative fine and say, if I do something, it's going to cost me $1 million if I do something wrong, but in a year, if I can make $6 million, and it's just going to cost me $1 million to do it, then what's the incentive not to do it? I mean, I guess morality, which I have morals, and a lot of us in the industry want to do right. But, you can get these bad players coming in, and I think the state did a great job. I'm not faulting the state at all for the hold, because I think, that it's come out that it was the proper thing to do. And, there's enough of us in this industry that want to do right.
Here's some of the violations on the rules that are in the legal papers here, and I'll just read the first couple of lines. Rapid improperly manipulated testing data, inaccurately reported compliance samples. Rapid failed to develop and implement a quality assurance program. Rapid deviated significantly from the approved SOP, the standard operation practices, and method validation for cannabinoid potency, and manipulated sample injection volumes. Rapid implemented alternative testing methods without submitting the requisite validation report. Rapid failed to adhere to good laboratory practices. Rapid repeatedly failed to run adequate continuing calibration verifications. And it goes on and on. What was the reason they did this? It must have been easier for them to do this than to do it right. Jordan, what do you think the problem was? How could they have been certified in the initial part of this if they couldn't do all of these things other than just failing and just didn't want to do it because it was cheaper not to?
Right. So unfortunately, in terms of cause, I couldn't say. I'd be speaking purely from speculation.
Yeah.
So Rapid never actually entered an appearance, so we didn't get the opportunity really to dive into their specific reasons for these failures to follow processes. But initially, with the initial inspection that the state would do on a testing facility, right, they'd come in, check, and be sure things are calibrated. They would read through their SOPs that are submitted to the state, ensure that they meet all the requirements. I would have to say, right, you can submit a SOP. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to follow that SOP in practice. And I think ultimately that's probably where the issue lies, right, is that they had these SOPs. It's not necessarily that the SOPs themselves were incorrect, I would have to assume, right, since the state did initially license them, but it's just following through on those SOPs and the implementation and the actions, right, that obviously there was something that went awry there.
Jason, where are these guys located, and who are they? Are they a combination of Mississippi people, or tell me a little bit about Rapid?
Well, so we're trying right now to get the application from the State Department of Health, and we're told that there needs to be some redaction, and so that that their answer provides within the statute and the regulations. But from things that we've gleaned from news articles and things like that, there's a Dr. Kyle Felling that's I think residing in Arkansas. He was doing business in Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. There's an article in the Natchez Democrat that listed him as a minority owner. I know there's a Mamie Henry in Natchez, because she's the one that is the spokesperson for the lab, but also the one the letter from Department of Health is addressed to. But I think she bought in 2 weeks before the hold. And then there's a Dr. Jeffrey Keller. I think he lives in Baton Rouge. So, but I believe it was Dr. Keller and Dr. Felling that started Rapid, and they're both out-of-state players.
There's something in all the interviews that we did on this one. Wasn't there something, maybe it was just in the vendors or the bricks and mortar places, that said it had to be Mississippians, or at least a sizable portion of Mississippians involved?
Right, yeah, so you have a license type that's a micro license for cultivators, micro processing. Those you do have to have 100% Mississippi owned, and then there's some other requirements for investment. It's kind of a 10% threshold, generally speaking, that has to be abided by.
SADUJA, you're asking $5,744,395.84.
Yep, and we got awarded it in Adams County, so that's the court decided that's what we were owed. Because and we testified to the fact. This could cause us to close our doors, and that's all because an out-of-state interest wanted to come in and harm Mississippi patients. And like I said, I commend the Department of Health, because when this hold went into place, everyone wanted to say, oh, it's an overreach by the Department of Health, it's this. But then it turned out, if their findings are correct, and I have no reason to believe they aren't, that they were absolutely correct and that they were protecting Mississippi public health.
FerrCann was the judge. What was the judgment request there? $595,000.
Right, that's correct, and that's particularly related to the dispensary retail outlet.
When we come back, again, just an update on this, where everything is now, how do you go forward, and have you recovered from all of this, and what does testing look like in Mississippi as far as the state is now, with the two guys, Jason McDonald and Jordan Cain, when we return next. Let me get back to Jason McDonald and Jordan Cain. It's a unique product. First of all, aside from the hallucinogenic characteristics, of course, of the product, if it were alcohol or meat or something else, we're talking perishable. But in your particular case, the characteristics of the product changes. It's not. It can change in quality or potency. So I guess what I'm confused at is when you pull it from the market and you hold it somewhere, who's holding it? What's the value of that if it's not held in the right way? And is there another possible lawsuit there? Where does it go?
Yeah, so from our end on the retail end, right, so we have tens of thousands of dollars of product that was pulled from the shelf.
And what happens to it? Where does it go?
So we have a safe room in the back of the retail establishment, right? So we have to lock that away, separate it from product that can be sold. And that's more or less kind of the process for most dispensaries. And for us, right, a small business, and same way with a lot of MICA members, tens of thousands of dollars being pulled and put into a room that you're unable to touch for 6 months is really detrimental, right? Because we don't have a lot of, it's not like we have tons of investors, right? Most of us are just mom and pop type establishments, and that's severely hindered, right? We have a lot of capital for us, right, tied up in product that we can't do anything with.
Yeah, and then whenever it's sitting there, like you mentioned, Paul, that the potency goes down, but also consumers don't want to buy something that's more than 6 months old. So if it's sitting there and it can't be sold, then the dispensaries that paid good money for it when it was fresh now are losing, and they're having to just basically give it away. I mean, you can't give it away, but sell it for cheap and take the loss. And that's even part of, in that order you'll see
Are you allowed to discount that? Is that possible? You can discount something like that?
I mean, you can mark down the price of anything, and they can sell it for whatever they want. And so older things start being marked down just to move it, and there is a market for that. I mean,
which degrades faster, the edibles or the smoke itself, or the plant itself?
I would say if stored under ideal conditions, right, so controlling temperature, humidity, etc., that typically flower degrades quicker. You have things in it called terpenes. They're volatile organic chemicals. Those tend to essentially evaporate out from the moment of harvest. So the longer that sits, then ultimately the less of those organic chemicals you have present at the time of sale. So least effective medicine, the COAs at that point are telling you one thing, but the actual product tends to be different just naturally.
What was one of the first indications that something was wrong here?
I would say most of us were made aware through an email that was sent out by the department notifying us that rapid tested product had been on hold, and there wasn't a lot with that initial email, but that was our first indication.
Yeah, and most of us were actually sitting in the Capitol. It was the day of the Cannabis Advisory Committee meeting, so all of a sudden, you're in a room. Cell phones start going off, people start running outside, and it's like the sky had fallen because you had the entire industry sitting in a room.
There was this note that went out, of course, from the Mississippi Medical Cannabis Program, notice of intent to revoke the license of said person because of the serious and persistent nature of the deviation constitutes a danger to the public health and safety and welfare. The Mississippi State Department of Health hereby provides notice of intent to revoke your establishment's license to operate as a medical cannabis testing facility, and that should have resonated with just about everybody in the state. Jordan?
Right, yeah. I mean, so license revocation is really the most serious avenue the department has, right? So they can fine you, they can come in and put in basically development plans there's a lot of avenues they can use to try to get a establishment within the regulations. So the fact that that was their solution is just testament to the dangers and seriousness of a testing facility not
and
following.
it came with $1 million fine too. I mean, that's part of the $1 million fine and revocations.
Where are they today? What's the status financially and operationally for that company as far as Rapid's concerned?
We're still trying to find that out. Like I said, they didn't show up for court, and
what is the plan? They're still not testing, right?
Yeah, they're not testing at the moment. I've heard, and again, I think that they're in the appeals process with the Department of Health, but I mean, I can't. Yeah, I don't know that
I got you.
particularly.
Jordan, tell me a little bit about FerrCann. You transport? You got statewide, or do you have a particular area of the state, or what?
Right. So we, for FerrCann Transport, we operate statewide for the medical program, right? So we're based out of Hattiesburg, but we do deliveries and pickups for cultivators and retailers in North Mississippi, South, Central, all over. And then our holding company, right? So as mentioned previously, we have a common investor who has a dispensary and cultivation. Both of those are based out of Hattiesburg as well.
You have to have a specific type of transport, refrigerated truck or something for that, or?
Right, yeah. So most of our vehicles, and when I say most, I'm talking industry, right? So ours specifically are refrigerated. Most people's in the industry are. There's specific licensures or inspections you have to go through to be sure that your vehicle is up to standards to transport medical cannabis. Most of that includes being sure vehicles are kept clean or sanitized, they're able to transport product safely and securely.
How are you for drivers and employees?
So honestly, right now the market's kind of in a weird spot when it comes to transport. It's very supply and demand driven. So right now the supply of transporters out there vastly outpace the demand for transport. So we have a limited market right now, limited patient count, and a lot of that tends to trickle back down to transporters.
I got it.
Right.
Jason, a little bit about the Great Mississippi Tea Company.
Yeah, so the Great Mississippi Tea Company we've been growing specialty tea here in Mississippi for about the last 13 years. And we've come on Garden Mama a whole lot on SuperTalk. And so back in 2021 or 2022, we decided to grow hemp and then started SADUJA. And so got over into that. And we treat medical marijuana just like any other specialty crop, just like tea is a specialty crop. And so, with the tea side, you can go direct to consumer. We do third-party testing. So far, I haven't had any problems with it.
Can you fuse those things with a little medical marijuana and tea?
So that's actually, we're a licensee of HelioBud, and there actually is, I'm not advertising or selling anything, but we do have a tea that has THC infused in it, and so people can make iced and hot tea with it. So that's part of the HelioBud brand concept is doing edibles that aren't sugar based because we have a diabetic population. So there's all sorts of different products at the dispensaries.
Jordan, if you took a look at where the market is now, this is still young as far as medical marijuana is concerned. Are you sorry you got into it, or do you think it's got long-term profitability?
No, well, I think long-term...
Or are you just going to go to the back of the truck and just enjoy your own product and leave?
Well, unfortunately, we're not able to partake of other people's product, right? So.
Just find a spot on a country road somewhere.
But no, so in terms of long-term outlook, really, that's yet to be seen. I know the first 2 years obviously have been a struggle. We believe in the market, right? We believe in the products. And I've thoroughly enjoyed my time in it. I come from traditional transportation, and I'd have to say that working in cannabis has been the most difficult yet most rewarding industry I've been in to date.
So the last time we had some gentlemen on from this, the increase is there. It's slow, but the increase is there.
Right, yeah. I think the last reported numbers for patient counts is the low 40,000s. There's some debate on whether or not the real count may be a little lower due to some lapsed patient cards, right? So if patient cards have lapsed, sometimes they get generated a new number. So maybe those, I think 43, 44,000, maybe slightly inflated. But ideally, we would love to see this in terms of a patient count really at 100,000. I think that's where a lot of people need to be for this market.
I got it.
To really be profitable and make sense for them.
Jason, do you grow your tea indoors? It's indoors or outdoors?
Oh no, it's outdoors.
It's outdoors?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
so
Mississippi is a good climate for that?
Yeah, it's a camellia. So I mean, it grows well. I mean,
that's very interesting. And also, when it's a teapot, it's a teapot in this particular case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you for coming. Appreciate you coming in.
Thanks.
Back with more.
Thanks for
coming up
having
next.
us.